from the 12th of July 2016. The Women's Super League, the FAWSL, will be played through the winter in 2017-18. The Football Association has announced. The FAWSL, which is in its 6th year, it takes place in the English summer, with the 2016 season having started on March 23rd. The 2017-18 FAWSL will run from September to May after the Women's Euro 2017, moving in line with other divisions in Europe. So that's one interesting part of it. But even more so, where we roll into, the FA says it hopes the changes will help England win the 2023 World Cup, improve player welfare, and double both participation and attendances. England manager Mark Sampson described the move as courageous, but thinks it will take the game forward. We'll come back to a bit more in terms of Mark Sampson's views in a second as well. But it is one that was a one-off transitional competition known as the FAWSL Spring Series, will run from February to June in 2017 alongside the Women's FA Cup as part of the changes. The FA has also revealed the WSL will take a 1-month winter break from mid-December 2017 to mid-January 2018. The Women's Premier League divisions, WPL, which include the third tier of women's football and below, are already played over the winter. The WSL had planned to expand to 20 clubs by 2017, with no teams being relegated from WSL2 to the WPL. That will continue to 21 teams by 2017-18. So the new schedule, the league will start September 2017. The winter break will be mid-December to mid-January. It will end May 2018. There'll be 10 clubs in FAWSL 1 and 11 clubs in FAWSL 2. Now, being competitive in Europe is quite an important thing in this as well. So the summer schedule has been criticised. Had been criticised by leading figures in the English game, including Chelsea ladies manager Emma Hayes, for its impact on English clubs competing in Europe. Speaking after a 2-1 loss in the first leg of Versailles Champions League last 16 tie against German side Wolfsburg in November 2015, Hayes actually said, 4 weeks between games showed. I hope our Football Association do more to prepare better scheduling, because if an English team is going to win the Champions League, we have to be more game ready. It's geared to French, German and Swedish teams, and until we change that or listen to clubs like Chelsea, we're always going to get knocked out in the early rounds. The Women's Champions League runs alongside the men's competition, with the 2016-17 final to be played in Cardiff on June 1st. In 2014-15, Bristol Academy reached the quarterfinals of the competition, only to lose 12-0 on aggregate to Frankfurt in a March tie that came before Bristol had started their 2015 league campaign. So the FAWSL Spring Series, the one-off Spring Series, as the league switches from a summer schedule to winter, the WSL Spring Series removes the prospect of a 10-month period without competitive matches for FAWSL teams. Clubs will play each other just once between February and June before England head to the Netherlands for Euro 2017. Fixtures will start in the same month as in which WSL 2 clubs have typically entered the Women's FA Cup. Trophies will be awarded to divisional winners, but there will be no promotional relegation. So it's basically a one-time league kind of setup. But attendances in WSL 1 saw an overall rise of 48% in the 2015 season compared to 2014, with record crowds after England came third at the World Cup in Canada, which we discussed in previous PTLIVE shows. But Manchester City women were watched by the highest average crowd of 1,500. But whether WSL clubs playing matches on the same days as their male counterparts would see an increase or decrease in attendances remains to be seen. And that's one of the interesting things as well. The 2015 and 16 Women's FA Cup finals both saw record competition crowds at Wembley. Recently, especially recently, with Arsenal beating Chelsea 1-0 in May in this year's final in front of 32,912 people. There were just over 30,000 at the year before, which we were actually at. Pitch Talk at the 2015 Women's FA Cup final. Check that out on YouTube. It's actually featuring girls on the ball, Sophie and Rachel as well. By the way, more on Sophie and Rachel a little later, because we're going to come into their views as well. But Eniola Aluko has had her take on the winter move, but she has actually said that moving to a summer league back in 2011 was a good decision in order to grow a fan base and welcome in regular crowds of more than 1,000 people, and it feels like the women's game has already done that. But she says we've already seen huge gaps in the fixtures this season, and irregular scheduling could spoil all the good work done in growing the game to this stage. Now hopefully we will see more consistency, and I actually think it opens up some exciting marketing opportunities to boost women's football even further. Clubs could begin to merge their men's and women's operations to a greater degree by hosting games on the same weekend or even on the same day. Why not play a women's WSL game at Stamford Bridge or the Emirates Stadium before the men kick off their Premier League match, or create ticket price incentives for fans that involve going to men's and a women's game for a reduced price than a normal ticket? That could lead to some really big attendances and will be fantastic for the players too. I also think the move will be good for the competitiveness of the WSL teams and in turn England. The Women's Champions League is still run on a winter schedule. So when we played Wolfsburg in the competition last November, as mentioned from Emma Hayes' comments, not only had they completed a full season, but they hadn't played for a month as well. They were out of season. Now, from the 12th of July 2016, so those are Eniola Aluko's views on it. Mark Sampson believes that switching the FA Women's Super League back to a more traditional winter schedule will be extremely beneficial for his England women's team, the Lionesses. Sampson is happy that his Lionesses squad will be matched tough by the time the European Championship finals come around next July. He said one of the key reasons we made this decision is that it does have many benefits for the game as a whole, but it does have many benefits for England as well. The most important thing for us is that we deliver at major championships, and we've got to give ourselves every possible chance of doing that. If you look at our FIFA windows at the moment, we've only got 8 blocks over the course of the season. We probably get contact with the players for 60 days. So if you're playing 10 to 12 games, there's not much time for training. So now looking at the 2017 calendar with not many games on the Sunday before FIFA windows, it means players will turn up for England fit and fresh and we can really work them. An extra 2 training sessions per camp is a lot over the course of a year. When we go to Euro 2017, I think we'll have players with an ample amount of game time, so they'll be fit, they'll be fresh, and hopefully they'll be match tough, which is really important. Obviously, the England Lionesses have already qualified for the Euro finals following a 7-0 win in Serbia last month, as we mentioned, and then because of an admin error, they actually had to wait an extra day. But from the 13th of July 2016, Notts County Ladies manager Rick Passmore gave his reaction to the confirmation that the FAWSL will be moving to a winter calendar, and he said, as the Women's Super League and the women's game on a wider spectrum has grown over the past 6 seasons, the need for structure and continuity has become evident. The league, alongside the outstanding achievement of the England team at last year's World Cup, has contributed to a growth of women's football which has exceeded everyone's expectations. However, this hasn't come without its own problems, and whilst reviewing the league and its structure, clubs have been in detailed discussions with the FA over the move of the WSL football calendar to combat these barriers we currently have. We believe the move will give the fixture schedule both structure and continuity for the supporters as much as the players and staff themselves. The current schedule has a number of breaks between fixtures which are unfortunately avoidable in the current fixture calendar. These don't allow for teams to build momentum, which would ultimately lead to better performances and a higher standard of football being played. The new fixture scheduling will also give us as a league the opportunity to demonstrate the talent and levels of performance on the biggest stage of European competition. English teams competing in the Champions League will now come into the competition with momentum and peak fitness levels, as opposed to the current structure, which can see a team play a knockout game having not played a competitive game for well over a month. Finally, I'd like to thank our fans for their incredible support on our journey so far. So it's one of them ones. So, of course, talking about a new era. But big shout out, actually, a big time shout out to girls on the ball who have actually put pen to paper on a new blog about the FAWSL winter change as well. It is one of them ones where, yeah, it's like they've had some very, very interesting views on the switch, and basically their blog, Weighing Up a Winter FAWSL, www.girlsontheball.com/weighing-winter-FAWSL. Check that out, www.girlsontheball.com/weighing-winter-FAWSL. Basically, Sophie and Rachel go through the benefits for the national team, aligning the women's football pyramid as well, which we're going to come into in a sec. The Champions League, the stronger affiliation with men's and women's men's clubs and use of facilities, and also some reservations as well in terms of pitches and weather, fixtures and attendance, media coverage, and also is it an easy way out is a question that they ask as well. One of the main things that does keep cropping up is the national team. And basically, Sophie and Rachel have said the main beneficiary from the move will be the national team. With both major tournaments being played in summer, we've had a regular conundrum every 2 years about how to manage scheduling. With players more involved with their clubs prior to tournaments, there is greater risk of injury. The list of injuries to the squad prior to Euro 2013 is notorious, and less time to come together as a squad. Will we see lengthy national team camps that have proven particularly beneficial to the Americans? Well, however, it's perfectly valid to argue the opposite as well. But one of the other interesting things that they mentioned in terms of aligning the women's football pyramid, aligning the whole structure of women's football will have had a huge part to play in this decision. With all leagues now playing at the same time, there can be a more streamlined approach to the women's game. There have been problems in the past where the FAWPL has taken a backseat to the top league, and the division was amplified by the different playing time as well. But also stronger affiliation, and Eniola Aluko mentioned it as well. But Girls on the Ball mentioned clubs who are aligned to their men's side could benefit from stronger affiliations between the two. A main problem with playing in the summer is that much of the men's game is effectively shut down for the off-season break. With alignment in their playing times, they could benefit from increased branding and marketing as well as use of facilities. There is also, of course, a massive caveat around it, and it's dependent on the men's side, their sustainability and willingness to commit to the cause. So in the past, that dependency has proven flawed. We've actually discussed a little bit of that in Pitch Talk Meets Girls on the Ball as well, in terms of the unification of the men's and women's game as well. But they do have their reservations as well, and it's one of them ones, pitches, coping with winter weather. We have this problem at Southern Amateur League level. At women's level, it could be an issue. It could be an issue as well, especially when the winters in Britain start hitting. But also scheduling and attendance, which Eniola Aluko actually did mention as well. Schedules and attendance, and the age-old question, how do you expect to draw crowds if games are scheduled at the same time as the men's matches, is a question that Girls on the Ball actually do ask. And also media coverage. And also, it's one of them ones. Fight for column inches and TV space could be even harder when you're battling against the beast that is the Premier League. And that's another quote from Girls on the Ball's blog. It is well worth a read. It is well worth a read. Weighing up a winter FAWSL. www.girlsontheball.com/weighing-winter-FAWSL. Please have a read of that blog. It's very, very interesting. There's some very interesting points actually brought up in that as well. But Gezzie Fizzle, your view in terms of Mark Sampson's view, Eniola Aluko's view, Notts County Ladies manager Rick Passmore's view, and the general view, including Girls on the Ball, some of the quotes that I've just read out, in terms of the FAWSL switching to a winter season in 2017. Is it a smart move, or do you think it could backfire?
Well, I think until it's trialed, we don't really know. This is the thing. I think they have to try it out. They have to have a look at it, because one of the things that, for me, is beneficial is the benefit that will be attained by the national team, right? So we talk about England's failings, but in terms of the leagues, nothing is being done in terms of a winter break, right? So if they're gonna go and have, a winter FAWSL, and that's going to help, then for me, I think, why not? Because if it means that the women's team go on and they win trophies, that's a win-win as far as I can see. I think Eniola Aluko has a very interesting point in that a lot has been done up to this point to promote the game, and it could potentially be a backward step in terms of attendance revenue generated, especially on match day, so on and so forth. So I think that's something else to go and think about. But the better affiliation with the men's teams, for example, can only take things from strength to strength, because you'll have some fans that are fans of the men's team. The club actually has a men's and women's team, but they don't follow the women's team as well. So if it means that, for example, there's shared access to facilities, training methods, so on and so forth, then I think why not have that as a support and have the women's game on the same level as the men's game? Why not do that? And in terms of us football fans who like to watch football all year round, irrespective of who's playing, irrespective of when they're playing, where they're playing, and everything else, having a more or less constant cycle of football is good. For me, I don't really see that there's a lot wrong with that. And I think, as we say, in terms of tournament progression, it helped massively. But in terms of the reservations, as girls on the ball point out, pitches and the weather, it's huge.
Jesse, I'm just
cannot rule that out.
Jesse, I'm just gonna pause you. Just gonna pause you for a sec, just because we have a caller on the line. Caller, you're through to your Monday Night Football and Fix. Who do we have the pleasure of conversing with right now?
Guess who?
That voice sounds really familiar.
Does it?
Sounds a little familiar.
No, who are you?
Maybe the initials RV.
Good evening, Liam. How you doing, my friend?
Nah, all good. Russ, we're gonna come back to you in a sec. Gezzie Fizzle. Sorry, just had to interrupt you for a sec. But yeah, you were talking about the Winter FAWSL switch. Just want to come back to you before we throw it out.
Yeah, I was just saying about the weather and the pitches. I think that's going to be a really big contention point, because obviously with the winter, you have the cold weather, obviously, and then of course the pitch quality isn't going to be anywhere near as good because of that. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of role that plays. And then of course media coverage, with it going through winter, again, it's pretty much going head to head with the beast that is the Premier League, and of course the Championship and everything else. So I says to you, is there room for both of them at the same time? When, if you look at it, the FA is so heavily invested in the Premier League, for example, that unless provisions are made, again, for equality, it's not really going to work. So for example, aren't BT Sport one of the main broadcasters of the FAWSL?
Well, they're the main one, yeah.
But this is my point. So, but they also have now a very big chunk of the Premier League as well, right? So if the FAWSL moves to winter, how do they balance that out? In terms of making sure that there's a potentially as high a viewership as possible. Can they go on at the same time as a Premier League game, or even a European League game, like for example the Eredivisie or Serie A or the Bundesliga or Ligue 1? Can they do that?
Ligue 1.
Can they do that? Is my question. Like, sure, you can go and shift one to BT Sports 2 or what have you, but again, in terms of the viewership, are they really giving it a fair shot? And I would say probably not. And if they don't have that, then, as Eniola Aluko pointed out, all of the work that was done to promote the growth, to get the game to where it is now in terms of attendances, exposure, media coverage, etc., it ends up taking a back step.
But then the thing is that actually that's not a bad idea, you know. Ryan Sonley's actually not had a bad idea. It's almost a stroke of genius that BT Sport should pay us for. But it's one of them ones. Creating a new BT Sport channel, especially for women's sport, would be very interesting. Because, well, Sky have done it for Formula One. So why not create a whole women's football channel? That might be an interesting little way around there. But I think Gezzie Fizzle, I think you're onto something in terms of one of them ones where we've discussed this before. We've discussed this before a few years back, and I've always been of the mindset that the Premier League, for women's football to get as big as it can, the Premier League would have to move aside. Not obviously completely, but I mean, it'd have to move aside a bit because it monopolizes television coverage. It monopolizes, as girls on the board said in their blog, it's a case of it monopolizes the back pages already. So it's one of them ones. I mean, I think the when the FAWSL, when I heard it was going to be in the Summer League, I thought, you know what, that's not too bad an idea. Because whilst you're trying to grow that fan base, which is a lot more family orientated, then yeah, the summer is actually not too bad a time to do it. Like when the kids are broken up from school and there's no football on, so let's say it's a year with no World Cup or no European Championships, then the FAWSL does fill that void. And as you said, Gezzie, you're talking about kind of a continuous stream of football, then that actually serves a great purpose. But going head to head with the men's game, this is, I don't know, I think it's kind of like it. You kind of just reminded me of you kind of reminded me of WWE versus WCW. When WCW decided to, Eric, what are we going to do to compete with WWE? Those who know that story will know what I'm referring to, but basically it's when Eric Bischoff was asked that question, and it changed the course of pro wrestling history. When Turner decided to switch WCW to a Monday night and go head to head with Vince McMahon and the WWE. All right, the WWE ended up winning out. But it's one of them was you got to look at the Premier League as the WWE in that example. I don't think the FAWSL would crash and burn, but it might be one of it. I don't think the FAWSL would crash and burn as WCW did in 2001. But it's one of them ones I think the FAWSL may end up, if they go head to head with the Premier League, unless there's a lot more cooperation between the men's game and the women's game, then I think the FAWSL may end up like TNA. And those who understand and those who know pro wrestling will know what I'm talking about with that, and it's not a good thing. But it's one of them ones where TNA get like 0.9, 1.0, 1.1, and they've been stuck at that since 2004, 2005 when they started broadcasting on TV. So when they got their deal with Spike back in the day. So it's one of them ones. But then you look at, say, WWE, they're getting 3.5s and they're actually putting out a pretty poor product to get that. But for me it's a case of like Eniola Aluko actually came out with a very, very interesting idea that when we were reading it out just now actually spiked my interest. And that idea, where is it? Why not play a women's WSL game at Stamford Bridge or the Emirates Stadium before the men kick off their Premier League match? Or create ticket price incentives for fans that involve going to a men's and women's game for a reduced price than a normal ticket. So instead of paying 90 quid for both tickets and paying for them separately, let's say you pay 60 quid and you get to see both. I think those two, are actually brilliant ideas. But the only thing with the first idea, playing a WSL game at Stamford Bridge or the Emirates Stadium before the men kick off their Premier League match, it will it will always make the women's game look like second banana to the men's game, perception wise. It's like having it. It's one of them ones. It's like having It's like having guys in a preliminary match on, say. It's like having guys in a preliminary match on Sunday Night Heat for the WWE, WWF fans out there. It's one of them ones. It'd be like having. It's like having your World Tag Team title match. And Jesse, you'll probably remember this. WrestleMania 19 back in 2003. The World Tag Team title match was bumped to Sunday Night Heat. Which it was, Rob Van Dam and Kane as the World Tag Team Champions against Lance Storm and Sean Morley. And it was one of them ones that got bumped to Sunday Night Heat. So it was like, wait, where's the World Tag title match? It kind of hurt the perception of those titles kind of for the rest of that year, in my opinion. And it's one of them ones. The perception thing is like, that's not as important. That's a preliminary thing. That's the only negative I would see in one of Eniola Aluko's ideas. But I think those two are quite good ideas. But it would take cooperation, and this is one thing that the men's game can't even get right between themselves. Is cooperation. Cooperation. Look at the Premier League clubs and financial fair play. You can't even get cooperation so that everyone's on a level playing field financially. So my concern, and as Girls on the Ball have mentioned in their blog, remember, go to girlsontheball.com and read that blog for the details. But it's one of them ones where it's like that kind of cooperation. There is that questionable area. Will the men's game be willing to cooperate with the women's game? Because you look at what came out from Greg Dyke recently about this whole thing of Premier League B teams in the Football League. There's not even cooperation within the men's game between the men. So bringing another area of the game in and hoping for cooperation, I don't know if it's going to happen. And I've got no real confidence in the men's game wanting to cooperate with the women's arm of their sides. I mean, you look at, for example, Manchester United don't have a women's team. They had one and then they disbanded it pretty quickly. Man United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, as much as it pains me to say it, one of the biggest clubs in the world, £1 billion club as well, according to Forbes. And they don't have a women's side. What kind of message is that sending perception-wise? So there are still big clubs without women's sides. And there are big clubs with women's sides who aren't working with those women's sides. And that's my concern. That's one of my concerns. So I don't know. I mean it's one of them ones. As I said, Eniola Aluko brings up some very, very interesting stuff in her BBC blog. But I think Mark Sampson is only really looking. He's obviously, him being the manager of the England Lionesses. He's of course looking purely at them. He's purely looking at the England Lionesses. How well can the Lionesses do? And that's fair dues because it's his job on the line. But the Premier League, I said, football's such an unscrupulous sport, and the Premier League is the personification of that between themselves. So I don't know, man. Going head to head with them and then hoping for help from them, I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know. For me personally, I see more cons than pros in moving the FAWSL to a Winter League. There's a huge pro in it in terms of aligning the women's football pyramid, as Girls on the Ball have mentioned on their blog. But it is one of them ones. You have to tread carefully. I mean, aligning the FAWSL and the WPL, I think, is a smart move because then it creates a good conveyor belt. But this might have been better. This might have been better to do in stages, where it'd be one of them ones where it's like, okay, we'll have it as a winter league, but we'll only play it on, say, Sundays or on a Wednesday, Thursday, for instance, and do it that way and build it slowly. That's just a suggestion. But in terms of aligning the women's football pyramid, I definitely think that this winter move is a good idea for that. But I think there's more cons to it than pros. Personally, I really do. I mean, it's one of them was Russ Vernon. You say you still on the phone line with us?
I am Liam. I'm still here, mate.
So what's your view on the FAWSL switching to a winter schedule?
Well, when I saw this, as I put a tweet, I mentioned you and Girls on the Ball in that tweet, and because I didn't know if you both had seen it, and then I read the Girls on the Ball blog, and I agree with the majority of what Girls on the Ball said, and I agree with what the majority of you said earlier. I think it's a good idea to switch it to a winter schedule, having been at the summer schedule for the last 6 seasons now. I think you could do a change, but like you said, Liam, I think it could maybe cause big problems if people men's games are probably done run about the same time, like on a Sunday for they both kick off at like 2 o'clock. There's only one on the 2 on Skype from the Premier League, the men's one, and the BT Sport from the women's. Which one's going to get most viewers? I don't know. It depends who's playing in the game on Skype from the men's Premier League as well. And I like what I said in the Skype chat as well, where he said they should create a channel on BT Sports, should create a women's channel. They've got a European channel, so why not create a women's channel? Just show all the women's football on there. Try and get, I know they won't probably get the Lionesses games on their BT Sport channel, because that's probably gone to BBC, but try and get likes of Wales and Scotland women's internationals on that channel as well, and also to get highlights packages for the English Lionesses into it as well. And it could be a successful channel if the BT do down that road, but I think it's time for a change for that. I think it's been in summer for a bit now, and there needs to be a change and try and see if we can compete with the men's game, and try and enforce more fans to try and get more fans to try and watch it when the men's game is actually being played at the same time as well. So I think it's a good switch for me, and I agree with what Goes on the Ball said in their blog as well on goesontheball.com. So if you've not seen that, go and check it out, because I recommend that blog for you guys to check it out. I'll post that myself on my own social media as well. And I also spoke to Gary Cooper, the Leeds Ladies chairman, regarding this, and he believes it could be a good thing, but like what you've said on the socials, will the WSL get enough media coverage? I think if we create another BT Sport channel when the new season's on, it probably will, because when European leagues are on, as well as having games on BT Sport Europe, BT Sports also have games on like 1 and 2 from European football. So if we create a women's TV channel, I think they'll get enough media coverage, because BBC have commentary on Sports Extra as well, Liam, on some of the matches as well. So I think we'll get enough coverage as long as they keep him on Sports Extra and also create another channel for him, and I think they'll get enough coverage. But if they keep with the same channels, I don't think they'll probably get as many coverage unless they show the women's games on the Red Button service on BT Sport 1 or BT Sport 2 or even BT Sport Europe as well. So I just wanted to say my thoughts on that when I started discussing that on the socials. So I can't be on Skype now, I've got other things to do in the background, so as well, but I thought I'd just phone in on this point and have my opinion on this.
Fair dues, and thank you for your views on it. I mean, Jamie Bailey, you wanted to jump in as well, didn't you? JBK.
Yeah.
And welcome to the show tonight as well. But your view on the FAWSL switching to a winter schedule.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Hopefully, everybody's been all right. I don't agree with it simply because the WSL just seems to be the right time for a summer tournament. Because it means that the men's game doesn't have to take precedence unless it's for a tournament. Only problem is that their games are not scheduled enough and there seems to be a high threshold of games that are missing in between times. So sometimes it works, but I think on the other hand it shouldn't, because it means the guys, if there is no sort of break for the men at Christmas, then it's just going to go back to the same way it was before, whereas they're going to lose out on money and probably get little or no coverage, especially if the championship is hosting as many games as they can. The Football League is hosting as many games as they can. The Premier League is hosting as many games as they can. All the top men's leagues are hosting as many games as they can, especially throughout that period of time. Just to kind of say, this is what we're doing in the championship, this is what we're doing in all the other leagues. What are you offering us? So yeah, disagree with it. If it goes ahead, guess good luck.
No, I hear that. I mean, it is confirmed that they will be going ahead with it, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see. It's going to be very, very interesting to see where it goes. See where it goes from here.